There's a request. There's a verb. Accept.
Accepted. Briefing. Fly. Okay. I joined the crew
So,
as
just
co-pilot.
to avoid grabbing the wrong stick, I'm going to rejoin my throttles.
I see a semi-transparent rotor blade above me. That's interesting. Oh, and everything's all black. Yeah, we're still loading textures here, so I'll be a second before I can function. A second or 50.
Yeah. Well, the good news is my VR has got over whatever it was that was giving it grief.
Good. Like I said, I always start with a reboot before going down any other troubleshooting rabbit holes. I just closed the doors. Here, I'm going to walk you through a startup. You can just watch.
Got him.
The first thing I do is, again, today we're working on landing where we want to land. You can do run on landings, right?
Yes. I tend to do stationary landings, just not quite where I know they're going to be, but
right.
Yes.
There's kind of, once you can do that, you can always just kind of get into a hover taxi and then just scooch over to wherever it was you wished you were. The one thing that's not great for is helipads.
Yes.
But yeah, I know what you want, and it's not an unreasonable thing to want to do. It's definitely something you have to do in real life, so let's practice that today. Okay, so my startup procedure, I usually, just because it's easier to get to, in real life you wouldn't do this because it's a power draw, but I turn on all these lights, these 6 square knobs up here on the ceiling.
Yep.
See them moving?
Yep.
Those are all the instrument lights, and then also the external lights. We can turn to flash and anti-collision on. Our anti-collision light isn't flashing lately. That's a new bug. Okay, and then forward on this panel, there's a battery switch. We turn that on, and we're going to hear the bad sound of the low rotor RPM alarm. Actually, it's a low and high rotor RPM alarm, I believe. Just means the rotor is not spinning the speed we want it to be. So we're going to turn that off immediately. It's down on the center pedestal next to the big yellow fuel switch. So we're going to turn the battery on and then go down to this pedestal and flick that low RPM alarm switch, and that turns it off. It's a solenoid switch, so the next time the alarm comes on, it will automatically flip itself up.
Okay.
So right next to it is the fuel. We turn the fuel pumps on. At the very top of this panel are hydraulics and force trim. We turn them on. Right next to it on the left is the IFF panel. I usually start to warm that up, so turn it to standby and on. And
we have no enemies.
Yeah, that's true. We have no enemies, but just a good habit to get into. Same as, I don't even know if we have countermeasures, but we can turn them on here at the bottom right of this center panel. Right there where that blue light is.
The problem with VR is it does test how flexible your aging back is.
Oh, I bet.
Because you do have to look in the right place.
Yeah, no, I end up with a sore neck after a few hours of track IR, and I'm only turning my head about 15 degrees to each side. I can't imagine what I'd feel like if I had to actually look behind myself. I'd probably break my poor old neck. Okay, right next to that is the weapons arming panel. We turn that on. Immediately above it is, again, I do this stuff whether we have weapons or not, just because it's part of the process. If I skip it, I get confused. We'll turn rocket pair to 1. That will make it so if we had rockets and we went to launch them, 1 would actually go. Okay, this next one's important. You see this panel I'm moving here? This switch?
Yep.
This is an intercom panel. Ideally, in a Huey, every crew station is supposed to have their own one of these panels. Because the Huey was built, I mean, they promised multi-crew right from the start, but we only got it recently. They also promised it for the MI8, and we still haven't seen a thing. Anyway, ideally, every crew position would have this, and it lets them choose which radio or intercom system they're talking on, and I'm not sure about monitoring.
Okay.
The first position, private, is only for the pilot and co-pilot. so they can talk to each other in private. The next one, intercom, is the whole crew, and I believe externally the ground crew as well. So if we needed to ask for fuel or something, we would want that, or we would want the doors open. If you don't do one of those two things, the ground crew won't be able to hear you. The position I usually like it in is number 2, which is the radio immediately above it, and we will turn that radio to transmit, receiving, guard. We don't care about the frequency because we're not actually using it today, but I just wanted to go through a complete checklist. Okay, back up to the top panel. I'm getting kind of a chunky frame rate here myself today. Back up to the top panel. There are these two square knob
shift control something for frame rate, isn't it?
Not quite. Right control pause will show you your frame rate. Yeah, I'm getting, it's jumping between. That's really weird. Normally I'm in the 50s or so, but it's jumping between 33 and 47 for me today. Could be the server. I wonder if we want a different server. Anyway, we're here now, so let's stick with it.
Yeah, I do have a bit of a time cut off as well. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'm getting a very steady 40, so VR 80.
Okay, good. Okay, back up to the top panel. On the forward part, you'll see these two. One says AC power. I'm turning it there.
Yep.
Just flip it once to the, I guess, to the left, which makes the one on the right come up that says AC power. And then the other one that says VM, give it 2 clicks. These don't matter for anything. They just select which bus the ammeter and voltmeter on your panel are showing you. So it's just it's just purely an instrument selection. And then we flip the cover on the main generator down. That will make us ready for start. Almost ready for start. One more thing we need to do, look down at the collective.
Yep.
Make sure your collective is all the way down. And, you're going to have to do this for me. You need to throttle. Oh, yes, very good. So that collective was up, and that would have killed us if we started up.
It was on the afterburner detent stop, because it was, of course, my throttle.
Gotcha. Okay, and throttle all the way up and all the way down.
Very all the way up.
And all the way down.
And all the way down.
Good. That gives the engine a squirt of fuel that it needs to start, and then puts it back into idle. And now you are going to hit the hold the starter button until we get 40% on the gas producer gauge.
I am. Where's the starter button?
Good question. You're probably going to need to map it. I believe in real life it's on the back of the collective, hidden from sight.
Not the throttle stop switch.
Not the throttle stop switch. That's on the front. And that's the one. Don't hit that, because that'll make us go out of idle into cutoff. That's
okay. Looks like I need to map something.
Okay.
And I have to do this. You can't, I assume.
Yeah. No, I can't do anything other than throw the switches here. So you have to do this.
So this is a starter switch.
Yeah. What's it called?
Startup engine. Okay, the things with start,
yes, startup engine, procedure, and by default,
CB starter, startup engine, starter generator. So the home button.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, let's go for. This will take slightly longer when you've got to lift your VR headset up. So press and hold this, yeah.
Yep, press and hold it. It's going to take about 30 or 40 seconds
until
the RPM on the gas producer gauge hits 40%, and then you can let go. It'll be self-sustaining at that point.
So which one hits 40%?
You see
the engine rotor RPM.
You see under the RPM there's a torque gauge.
Oh, there's a gas producer
and
down
there's
there.
The gas producer RPM below it. That's the gas producer is a silly name for jet engine.
And you want 25% on that?
40%.
40%.
And the rotors are
signs
spinning.
of life.
That's good. We can't see the tail rotor, but we'll assume it's going. There's There's 30%. And there's 40%. At this point, you can let go of the starter switch.
Okay.
Okay, it rocks around way too much. Oh my god, look what it's doing today. It's kind of sliding back and forth. It's odd. Okay, once the RPM stabilizes, or if you're in a hurry, you can just jump on it. Now you can advance the throttle to full.
Cool.
Very good. Our RPMs are coming up. Now, back up on the top panel, I'll do this stuff. We turn inverter to main by clicking that switch down, and we turn the start generator to standby. At the very, very rear of this panel, like you have to actually look backwards, there's one single solitary toggle switch, and that's your radar altimeter power. So we turn that on, and now we can go to the radar altimeter and set it the way we like it. A minimum, maximum altitude. Doesn't make any noises, unfortunately, so it's not a big deal. And the other thing in a Huey is the compass, the gyro compass needs to be aligned to the whiskey compass. So we're pointed roughly north, but I can see we're not quite right. You see what I'm doing here?
Yep.
On the gyro compass, that's the lower left knob. Now, the thing is, this can be 180 degrees off. If we go over to the south side here, so what we're looking for is the cross and the circle together. But you see, here we are aligned, but we're 180 degrees on a reciprocal heading. So you need to watch out for that. Look at that. Look at the whiskey compass that's over on the far right.
Yep.
And make sure they're generally the same heading, and that you've got both the circle and the cross. If you've got that, then they're aligned. You can do this in flight, so it's not the end of the world if you forget it on the ground. The only other thing is we have a master caution light on. Why is the DC generator light on? Yes, we do. You see on the center...
Yep. Sunlight on it. Yep.
Yeah. On the dummy board, on the center pedestal, we just hit hello, reset. Why is the DC generator
And it's now gone out. Where are we seeing the DC generator light?
This might be a desync problem. It's on I'm seeing it on the dummy board. Anyway, the light's off, and I think we had this problem before. Okay, we now have a flyable Huey. So that was the startup. Sounded a lot more complicated than it is. I can actually do it all in about, other than waiting for the starter, I can do it in 15 seconds.
Excellent.
Okay, so take us up just into a hover taxi.
So it looks like wind is from the right, looking at that windsock.
Okay, we're trucking.
Like I said, speed control is not my strong point. Actually, there's always quite a wind from behind. That's my excuse. That windsock's not going to the left, it's going strongly from behind.
Whoa.
Ooh. Slight over control on the collective. Massive over control on the collective. Let's face into the wind because it's always somehow easier that way.
It is easier to weather vane, as they call it. Okay, whether we wanted to or not, we are out of ground effect and flying, and now we're crashing. Okay, start again. This will happen, don't worry.
Let's see if we can find an unbroken Huey. Down one.
You shouldn't have to select a new one. You should just be able to click fly again, and it should make.
Really, I thought it was still a dead one till I. Okay, well I've just one down if that's okay.
Oh crap! That disconnected us. Yeah, no. If your aircraft blows up, you don't need to do the back to spectators thing.
Okay. Do you want me to go back into the one I was in?
No, too late. Too late. You disconnected us when you picked a new plane. Otherwise, it would have. When you respawned, I would have come back into the plane with you.
Right.
Sorry, I was yelling there. My spirit went to a field with a lot of jets. Okay. back here again. Lights on. Again, this is incorrect. You wouldn't want to do any power draws before starting up, but this is only DCS. Battery. Bad sound. Fuel. Hydraulics and force trim. We'll just, here. IFF, norm, and on. Countermeasures on. Weapons armed. 1 rocket. Radio 2. Radio 2 is set to transmit and receive. Back up to the top panel are 2 meter switches. 1 click for the first one and 2 clicks for the there's more desync issues. Look at it going by itself. I'm not commanding that. Okay, 1, 2. 2 clicks on that one. Close the main generator cover. We'll turn it on. Throttle all the way up, please. Collective down. Okay. Do you have your collective axis reversed so that when you pull, it comes up?
Correct.
Okay, good.
It's acting like a collective.
Good. Otherwise, you end up with a very bad muscle memory.
Yes. Okay, throttle is all the way up and down.
Okay, we're ready for the starter switch.
Cheers.
Rotors are rotoring.
Engine RPM is climbing.
25, 30, 35, 40, and you can release it. And you can go ahead and just give her the gas, throttle up. Okay, back up to our top panel. We are turning the inverter to main, starter generator to standby, radio altimeter power in the back on, setting the radar altimeter how we like it, and making sure our compass is aligned. And that's it, we're started. It's that easy.
Excellent.
Okay, this time I'm going to take control here. And
oh, hang on, I need to allow you to take control. There you go, you have control.
Okay. So what we want to do, this is how they do it in real life. The first thing you do is you get into a hover taxi. If you can't do this, then you don't have any business doing anything else. So, also, hit right control enter if you haven't already and get the controls overlay up. I hate having overlays in my face, but for the sake of learning today, we'll have that up. So you'll see my stick is centered. Does it show the trim? No, it doesn't show the trim location. Wait. Right, it doesn't show the trim location, it just shows the stick as if it's stuck there. I'm hands off now, but you see I'm trimmed forward to the left.
Yep.
The other really important switch is trim reset. There's no such switch in real life. In real life, you just center the stick and hit the force trim button and it recenters there. Or you can actually turn off the force trim entirely with the switch on the center panel.
I'm just going to quickly check on my mappings. I know where I've got that mapped. I'm sure I have got it mapped, but
yeah, it's an important one.
Yes, so trim is hat up and cancel trim is hat down. Yep.
Good. Okay. So yeah, that cancel trim button turns out to be very important. I used to use it always before landing so that my muscle memory wouldn't get confused. That was more when I had a force feedback stick that was working against me. I actually liked having it kind of work against me during landing because, again, it was a muscle memory thing. Lately, I haven't been doing that. I've just been trimming to be comfortable on landing. But it turns out I probably want to go back to doing that. And also, absolutely, if you're in an auto rotation, you want to cancel the force trim immediately. Otherwise, we don't get full authority on the stick. Now, unfortunately, I can't demonstrate the stick moving to its full extent, probably without mast bumping and making our rotor fly off. So, well, maybe I can. If I do it very slowly. See, I can go all the way back. Oh, you hear that sound? That click, click, click. That's mast bumping. That's the the teetering thing. If one rotor goes up, the other rotor goes down. They're on like a teeter-totter. And if it goes too far, it runs into the mast, and it'll actually snap the rotor right off the mast. The Huey killed a lot of people in real life. They eventually came out with a spring kit to somewhat prevent that from happening. Same thing with forward. So if I were to trim like in a typical cruise position, like right about here, so I've got it trimmed there, I'm hands off the stick now. Now if I pull full back on my stick, that's it. That's as far back as I can go. That is a horrible limitation and something you need to be aware of in DCS.
Yep.
Okay. Trim reset. So some people might trim before they take off. I don't. I leave it in the center, and we're just going to pull enough collective to get laid on the skids, which is right about here. We're not quite flying yet, but I can yaw it with the pedals. And at this point, you start using your stick so that you're not surprised by which way it's going to go when you take off. Now we pull a little bit more collective, and now we are in a ground effect hover, just a couple feet above the ground. And at this point, I'm going to trim it, and now I can let go. And this is hands off now.
Right.
Then the next thing, as you pointed out, the wind is coming from behind us. Typically we want to take off into the wind. But let's just hover taxi over to the runway.
No traffic in sight.
Thank you. So this is just, I'm just barely touching the stick. Again, by itself, it just wants to hover here in ground effect. It's not perfect, but again, hand is back on the stick at this point. And I'm giving it a fair bit of left pedal. You'll see the pedals are deflected.
Yep.
About 20% to the left there. That's normal for a ground effect hover, and you should anticipate that when taking off or when lifting off into the hover. You should expect
I've just realised I can mirror your control inputs with my control inputs, and I've got a white and a red up the top, so I can actually mirror you.
Oh, that's neat. I didn't know that. I don't think I've seen that. I wonder if that's a VR thing. Okay, so the runway looks clear. The wind is roughly this way, so we'll head down the runway. And okay, here's the thing. Actually, before we start, take a look at our torque gauge and at our exhaust temperature gauge. That red line on the torque gauge, you don't get any more power out of this bird past that red line. So in real life, that's where the pilots keep one eye on at all time. That tells them how much extra power they have to play with. In DCS, before we run against that red line, we usually over temperature the engine. So we keep our eye on the engine exhaust temperature gauge, which is on 5 right now. We don't want to let it go over 600 degrees. So we've got 100 degrees to play with there. So this is the thing. We're sitting here in ground effect on a cushion of air. So the helicopter has it relatively easy because that cushion of air helps keep us floating. But we could not hover like this if we were even, say, 20 feet higher. We would fall back down a little bit like we just did. However, what we can do is get moving forward, and translational lift, the lift from the wind blowing over our rotor blades, will actually give us the rest of the lift we need, and we can fly like this. So I'm not touching the collective at all. We're just going to get moving forward. This is the coolest thing. Now, the collective pitch angle is staying the same because we're not moving that control. But remember, there is a governor that can add more power to the engine to keep the RPMs up. So at this point, 40 knots, 50 knots, 60 knots, we're flying, and we can climb like this. So once you've got collective to get into that ground effect hover, that's all the collective you need to fly. You don't need to yank yourself up into the sky. You can just fly it like an airplane from there. And now that we're flying forward, I'm holding forward stick to maintain this position. See, it's roughly centered and a little bit forward. That's getting a little fatiguing already, so I'm going to hit the force trim button. Immediately recenter the stick, and there I am, hands off. Now if I take my feet off the pedals, we yaw over that way, but we do have enough forward speed that the tail plane is mostly keeping us forward. So that's hands off. I'm not flying at all right now.
Yep, and I'm also hands off stick, and I've trimmed to the same position as you. So
no. You don't need to trim. You can't trim to me when I have control.
But it trims where it's displaying my stick position.
Okay, but
I've got red and white stick positions.
Yeah, again, that's something I've never seen. I'll try it when you take control, but I don't think I see that. But again, the way it works is if I trim, that becomes your trim. So when you take control, you'll get my trim. You don't have to go to any effort to match it. Just like in real life. If the co-pilot trims the...
that does match what I saw. Yeah. Thinking about it.
So if you take control now...
How?
Press C, Charlie. Allow.
And it's still hands off. I don't need to do anything. Hurrah!
Yep, exactly. So you took my trim. Okay, now I see the white stuff. Okay. Interesting. And yeah, I can move mine, and I see yours. That's cool. So what happens if I set... Right, and I'm hitting trim reset, and it's having no effect.
Happening. Yep.
So you have control of the trim system. Okay, so now we're flying, and at this point it's pretty much like an airplane. So let's... obviously it's been a little while since you've flown, and you're a little bit rough. How about we do a run-on landing onto that runway?
Okay, so basically do a circuit.
Yep, do a circuit and land it just like it's an aircraft. So yeah, we're on our downwind leg now. And plan to have the skids hit the runway no faster than about 40 knots.
Okay. My instructor slapped me for cutting the corner on the circuit here, but what the hell.
Well, just make sure we have enough runway to do it. And again, you're not going to need really your hand on the collective at all, at least until we get right down. And pulling back will... Well, okay, actually, pulling back on the stick while dumping collective will slow you down. You need to do both of those things, otherwise you put the nose up and start to climb, at least in the short term. In the long term, you can't climb a helicopter by putting the nose up. It comes from the collective and from the forward airspeed. But in the short term, you can basically do little zoom climbs. Obviously, it'll go where you point it. Okay, we're about in line with the end of the runway, so if you want to bring her around gradually, we'll... And you can start losing a bit of altitude now. You can dump a bit of collective. Just a little.
Yes, yeah, I think this is possibly where my problem is.
That was a lot.
Yeah, I'm right on my afterburner stop. So I think I need to redo my curves so that my 0% is my afterburner stop. Because lifting over the afterburner stop is not something that is a precision operation.
Got you. Okay, let me take control so we don't lose the Huey.
How the hell do I do that with it? Okay, I trim and then I click on allow. You have control.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to put her down here. You can go into your controls and set that up now. And I will bring her... While you're doing that, well, actually, you won't be able to really appreciate that, but let me try and do a proper landing here. I'm aiming for that little turnaround patch on the end of the runway. So you come in at, I don't know, more collective. Yeah, I'm a little shaky today myself. So you pretty much just kind of get an approach angle working that's not too steep and not too shallow. Stick with it. Try not to hit this truck. And basically we're kind of hovering to a stop here. And as you see, there isn't enough forward speed to even kind of worry about. We made the pad a little bit ugly. Again, my frame rate is not good. Probably this server. Should have picked a less populated server to work in. And we're down. Trim reset. And waiting for you to make that change to your controls.
Yeah, they've done something to the axis tune panel. What the hell?
So you're in the axis commands?
Yeah, and I'm in axis tune.
Okay, so you're in the correct column for your particular controller.
Yep, and I can see it moving. I'm just trying to work out how to give it a dead zone.
And you're in axis tune. Right, so dead zone will work on one end and saturation X will cut the other end. I'm not sure which end your detent is at.
Oh, well, I've got one at each end, so I'm trying to ignore both.
Oh, that axis should be set to slider.
Yep.
Okay, good. If it's not set to slider, it only changes the visual representation, but it also it changes what dead zone does. It moves the dead zone to the center instead of the low end.
And how much curvature do you have?
None. Curvature is a fineness of control issue. Usually it's on a stick, not on a linear axis, although you can put it on a linear axis. So let's say you found the control was too sensitive at the top end and not sensitive enough at the bottom. You could address that with a curve.
Okay, I believe I have something.
So you can get
more
to
controllable.
You can get to full extents without
Can you see my white dots?
Without running into your. No, I can't because you're not in control. And if you are in control and you mess with those, we'll go flying.
Indeed. Right, my collective is fully down. My stick is centered.
Okay. Take control, and we're going to have you take off gradually. So just creep up on the collective until we get light on the skids. Not actually flying, just to the point where we're kind of scooching around. You'll also know because it becomes easy to use your pedals for yaw.
Okay, there's something weird there. Oh, there we go. There's our...
Yep, a little more collective. Counteract that with pedal. Very good. Let's get ourselves pointed towards the runway again. Whoop.
At this point, it's sort of running away from me.
Yeah, we shouldn't let it get this far. Pull back on the stick. Imagine you're riding a horse. Whoa, Nelly.
Yes, I'm British.
There we go. There we go. And keep that stick back. Okay, that's better. So around that position is where you want to be holding it for hover on the ground. And keep using your pedals to keep us pointed where we want to point. We're now sliding down this hill towards a fence. And flying backwards. Oh boy.
I can crash a helicopter in any direction you want.
Well, you're recovered from it. Okay, and we're kind of flying, but get us going down the runway and take us off. And yeah, stay on those pedals. It's good to anticipate. Okay, and there's your forward, and you're probably going to want to trim to about there. There you go. And you can fine-tune that trim position. Get her stable, and get to a point where you can take your hand right off the stick. The pedals you'll probably need to stay on. Nose forward a little. We're climbing aggressively, and we will run on airspeed. Not too much.
Yes. The standard instructor comment, not that much.
What kind of stick do you have?
It's a Cougar, so an A10.
Is that like a little desktop stick, or?
It's desktop with reasonably heavy springs.
Interesting. Okay, that's well trimmed there. And yeah, we've got a good forward airspeed, 70 knots, coming up on 80. So this is good. You've got quite a lot of collective in there, way more than we probably need, but that's okay. That just turns into speed. So yeah, unlike an aircraft, it's kind of attitude and power are strongly related to each other. Again, you can climb a short distance by putting your nose up, but the way you really climb for an extended period of time is to get the speed up. And you'll actually be slightly nose down in order to keep the speed up, but the helicopter will still be climbing. And about 1,000 feet per minute on the VSI is a good climb rate.
Yeah, just trying not to go above 1,000 at the moment.
Yep.
And as with all aircraft, it does fly so much more easily when it's properly trimmed.
Exactly. And yeah, it's going to take a little time to get comfortable with it again. I can already see you improving as we go.
And it is nice to have a better frame rate on this. It has definitely improved with a multi-thread on VR.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same today.
I don't know why, because you'd imagine that VR would be more GPU intensive. But
I think it's this server. DCS servers affect the frame rate of the clients, which is another crazy thing.
yeah, but the VR does seem to have been better with the multi-thread. So I can only assume that even when it's doing not that much high CPU, they've improved the way the CPU and the GPU are talking to each other to allow it to be a bit smoother.
I'm running the multi-threaded today myself, against my better judgment. But I don't think that's my issue, although I am seeing it jump between GPU bound and CPU bound. But I'm pretty sure if the server is holding back my frame rate, it's going to tell me CPU bound, as if it's my CPU, but it's actually my CPU waiting on the server, giving us permission to move.
I turned my frame rate off because it was overlapping with the controls display, and I decided I needed that more.
You can actually drag it to wherever you want on your screen. I'm not quite sure how that works in VR, but if you don't want it overlapping, you can just grab the window from the title bar and move it somewhere else. Anyway, frame rate is what... Oh, now I've gone and done it. There we go. Okay, now we're very fast, so pull back on the collective and keep your nose up to compensate. Yeah, we're way too fast.
When you say
dump the collective, push forward on it, and nose up. And probably reset your trim too before coming into the landing. Oh!
It's a good landing if you can walk away from it, even if it was a bit of a bounce.
Except we broke our skids off.
The people who needs them.
That's true. Okay, so right. So this is again, dump the collective, not completely, but the collective is what's giving you all that speed. Okay, that's too much. Now we're going to fall out of the sky. Okay, we pulled that one out of the shitter.
I do try to.
So that was the opposite end of what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to come to a stop in the sky. Oh, I should have checked fuel state before we started all this. It turns out we're about 50% fuel, which is perfect.
Okay, I've just lost control.
That's interesting.
Totally lost control.
Like, oh, probably because the trim was, you were trying to trim and you didn't recenter the stick. That's what happens. Okay, hit fly again. Sorry I'm yelling, I'm next to a Harrier.
So when you say fly again, I mean select roll, same aircraft?
No, just hit fly. Just the button.
I don't have a fly.
I don't see what you see. You should just, after you crash, there you go. Whatever you just did, dude. That's what we do.
Rest escape.
Do you want to try a startup?
I think in the interest of not getting my dinner, my wife going out buying a dog and feeding dinner to it, I probably ought to just hit the cheat button at this point.
Gotcha. Oh, wait. I'm doing it.
Okay.
The cheat button takes longer than me. You'd think.
I told her we were just doing 6 till 7. I've probably got some leeway, but I don't want to take the piss too much.
Yeah, no problem. This. There's desync again. Okay, throttle all the way up.
It's all the way down. Throttle is all the way up. Throttle is all the way down.
And we're ready for the start switch. So yeah, we don't want to let it get away from us and be behind it. We want to be ahead of it.
How do you recover from this condition? Well, you don't get into it in the first place.
Exactly. There's 40%.
40.
Throttle up.
There's full throttle.
Inverter to main. Whoops, sorry, I turned off the battery. Oh, sorry, it's just because the switch is in the way of the switch.
Trim is reset.
Yeah, the trim, we spawn with the trim reset. Oh, where's our power? Oh, this didn't go. There we go. Yeah, the gyro compass wouldn't work because the inverter wasn't on. Okay. Let me take control here. We'll do this one more time.
There was something about mice and VR that it never quite goes where you want it to.
Yeah, I know exactly. One of many. Oh, and here, let me turn down the radio because someone is transmitting. Where the hell is that? Here. Okay.
Oh, I'm not hearing them.
Because you're not in SRS.
That's true.
Okay. Bringing up my controls.
Right, so my mistake that time was I attempted to control it. What I should have done is let go of the stick instantly and then controlled it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Anytime you hit that trim switch, you got to go back to center, which is
Yep.
stupid and unrealistic. And unfortunately, there's no other way to deal with it other than not use the force trim at all.
Stick. Yeah.
Which
or have a force feedback stick. Yeah.
Or have a force feedback stick, which I used to have.
Which nobody makes anymore.
There's some boutique manufacturers making them. Yeah, no major manufacturers make affordable ones. Okay.
I'm spending enough on a new bike this year. Can't do a stick as well.
Okay, so I'm just very gently, slowly coming back on the collective, and I'm anticipating that it's going to want to yaw to the right. So I'm before we even need it, I'm putting in a little bit of left pedal. You see that?
Yep.
Also, I happen to know that it's going to want the stick back into the left a bit, so my stick is already back into the left a bit. So again, coming up on the collective. Oh, it's moving in big chunks for me. I wonder if I need to work on take my throttle apart. And there we are. We're light on the skids. We can actually yaw with the pedals, even though we're dragging on the ground. The nose is trying to lift up, so that's good. So just a little bit more will get us into ground effect hover. Actually, quite a bit more. There we go. And this is what we want to get. And if you, again, this is the first skill you have to master before we go flying at all. That's a bit high for a ground effect hover, but we're still in it. They say I think about half your rotor diameter is where ground effect will affect you. And it's already getting fatiguing holding my stick back and to the left like this. So I'm going to hit trim, center the stick, and now I'm hands off. And it's drifting a little bit. I can correct that, retrim. And again, if the stick doesn't center reliably, after you hit trim, you will have no control. The way they should have done it is given you control.
As soon as it moves a little bit, yes.
Yeah, they didn't have to cut the control completely until it recenters. I'm sure it used to work better than this. Because even though I had a force feedback stick, I would sometimes fly without it. But this, I think I recall this in the changelog from a few years ago. They changed it all for all the helicopters, and they dumbed it down. They dumbed it down on their end, making it harder for us. Again, the aircraft don't have this problem. When you trim a DCS aircraft, which you don't use like a force trim system, you use separate controls to do that, but still, it's the same thing. You don't lose authority on the stick. You can still move the stick all the way forward, all the way back, left and right. Okay, so again, this is something that you want to practice. Get so that you can fly around, go where you want in a hover taxi, and be comfortable doing that. Because until you can do that, there's very little point in doing the rest of the stuff. Because the final part of your landing, you're going to end up in exactly this state.
Yep.
So we need to be able to fly in this state before we can work on a landing. Okay, I'm going to just make one more minor trim adjustment. Okay, whoop. It's really hard to get fine trim with this system as well. Close enough. Take control.
I have control.
Oh, and
Well,
pull your
control.
collective back so it matches mine before you take control. And I'm going to allow now. There we go. So just most gentle movements of the stick. That's it. Forward. Forward. Keep us flying forward, not backwards.
I don't want to overdo it.
Good. Yep.
Don't really want to slam the tail into the ground.
Yeah. You might want to put some curves onto that stick, but for now, let's just deal with this. Yeah, adding some curve to it will give you a finer control around the center at the cost of coarser control towards the outside. But as you hardly ever go to the outside, it's usually better to have the fine control on the inside. I used to use huge curves of 20 to 40 when I had the Logitech Wingman 3D force feedback stick going. That thing was...
Yeah, on the World War II Warbirds, I found I couldn't fly them at all without a massive curve.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you're finding that with that same stick in the Warbirds, then... In fact, let's go ahead and put her down. Just gently dump the collective. Keep us level, and then once we touch the ground, dump the collective hard, so that we don't skid around the ground. Stick forward, stick forward. Keep flying her. Just because we're on the ground doesn't mean it's stopped flying. Okay, good. Oh, and yeah, dump that collective all the way.
I have.
Oh, that's weird. Oh,
It's showing zero for me.
Sorry, I'm seeing mine. Got it. Wow, that's weird.
So I'll just...
Okay, I was just looking at the way my throttle axis responds.
I'll just quickly check my curves on that stick.
Yeah. Go ahead and put some curves on your stick. So we go to adjust
axis,
controls.
Cyclic.
Axis
Axis tune. Yeah, let's give it some curvature.
Find your stick and enjoy Y. Now, this is not a slider axis. This is a regular joystick axis. So we do not.
That's curving how I expect.
We don't want the slider button checked. And you can turn on that curve, and that will. You can see right on the graph as you turn curve up, it will have less and less effect towards the center and more towards the outside, so that you still get full extent.
Okay.
So
let's see what happens there then.
So wait. You have two axes. So
Yep, done both. Yep.
Okay, you've done it for both?
Yep.
Okay, good.
And I can also smell dinner, so this is my last flight.
Okay. Well, this has been a good first step. Again, before we can work on landings, we need to get all of this stuff sorted out. So
Need to get the takeoff sorted first.
yeah, so this has not been a wasted effort by any means. Okay, so pull us up into ground effect hover.
Yep, I'm going for slowly rather than having to overcorrect.
Exactly. Very good. A little more, just a little more collective. And don't start flying yet. Keep the stick back. And yeah, just take us for a little walk here around the field. Let's explore things, and when we move, let's try to move forward and not backwards. Driving backwards is a advanced helicopter trick, actually. You're starting with the hard stuff. And we're just a little high, just a little less on the collective. There you go. Are those curves helping?
Well, I haven't crashed it yet, so probably.
It does seem to be more stable.
It must be said, I thought I had curves already, but clearly I didn't.
Yep. Okay, this is very good. So yeah, I think a lot of what we were fighting there was you just had too much sensitivity on that Cougar stick you're using. So again, that's exactly what curves are for. Very nice. Okay, take her out to the runway. Now, without touching the collective at all, you can take her out to the runway, turn right here. Give her the left stick because we're drifting to the right. Good. Very nice. Okay. Now just very gently, not too much, nose down and start to build some forward speed. You'll see the airspeed gauge come alive around 20. Keep that left pedal in. Very good. Let her start to build up speed. Left pedal. Left pedal. Good. A bit more left pedal. Good. Keep that nose down. Stick forward a little more. There we go. We have airspeed, and now we're flying. Now you can climb out, and we didn't have to touch the collective at all out of ground hover. Very good. You've made a trim change. Now we're climbing very nose high. You don't want to do that again, because you can do it for a few seconds at a time, but it won't last. You'll eventually run out of forward airspeed. So keep that nose down. Keep her trim usually fairly well forward. About a good third forward. Yep, that's about right. Oh, this is much better. And you can experiment with that curve amount and find what your sweet spot is.
Yep.
Okay, very nice. So we're going to try that same thing again, but this time we're going to keep an eye on our airspeed and try not to land at 100 knots. I'm going to shoot for about 40. But for the moment, we don't need to touch the collective at all. You can leave it right where it was when you were in ground effect hover. Now we know that this amount of collective is what we're going to need to go back to ground effect hover, right? Yep. However, we're probably going to need to dump a little bit of collective when we're losing speed, because we're going to raise our nose, which is going to make our rotors blow wind forward, just slowing down the helicopter. And to keep us from climbing when we do that, we're going to dump collective at the same time. But be prepared to immediately bring the collective back on so that we have enough power to ground effect hover. This is very good. We're diving a little hard and we're getting quite fast now.
Yeah, it's the wife testicle compatibility setting.
You can, gotcha. You can dump collective to help us get down. Very good. Just remember you're going to need to bring the collective back to about where it was. And yeah, just completely dump it and land it like you're gliding an airplane. Oh, yeah, you're trying to do too much too fast.
Too much.
Okay, don't touch down yet. Dump that collective and keep the nose up. And she'll slow herself down. There you go. Now let her come to a skid stop here. Oop, your tail strike. Okay, that wasn't too bad actually. It's a very fine line between doing this and doing it right. We were closer than you think.
But hey, we're not on fire. It's a good landing if you can walk away from it.
Exactly. Yeah. Open up the doors and get
Right,
out.
well, thank you very much. That has been very helpful.
Okay, we'll do another one soon. Practice all this stuff. And
yeah, I think the curves are going to make a massive difference.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the issues that was an impediment here. So
and more hover taxi.
Yeah, so practice that stuff, and we'll have another session soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your help. We should probably book more than 1 hour for the second session because that clearly was a very short period of time.
For sure, time flies when you're doing this, huh?
It does, but the hour I had in the Phantom seemed like 10 minutes.
Nice. Okay, have a good supper, and I'll talk to you soon, sir.
Thank you for your help.
No problem. Cheers.
Cheers.